obviously, again, it's a bit like everything. You go with a preconceived idea of how you're going to do it, and you go, yeah, it's simple. You just buy the best, and you deliver the best. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yeah, it doesn't work out like that. It's an awful lot more complicated than that, unfortunately.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Montclair podcast. Today I'm excited to introduce our guest. His name is Paul Healy. Paul is the founder of Sabor Provisions in Barcelona. After a successful career as a chef, learning from the kitchen of restaurants such as the Fat Duck, the iconic 3 Michelin star restaurant in Bray-on-Thames in the UK, Paul continued his career as a super yacht chef before venturing to the business world when he launched his provisioning business for super yacht, where he has made a name for himself by always delivering exceptional quality. Timing is also something very important that Paul has shared with us, and he's now adapting to the ever-changing challenges of the super yacht industry, because as we know, there is not only the qualities that is at stake. You have to be on time. You have to be able to deliver sometimes the impossible, and this is what Paul is trying to achieve on a daily basis. So Paul's going to share with us the struggle from navigating the challenges basically of running a business in a foreign country to dealing with sky high expectation from super yacht chefs and captains. Paul has diversified his approach by finding better producers and ensuring top quality provisions, while always working toward a more sustainable way of growing the supplies, growing the produce, delivering the produce, and overall just a better approach to provisioning and to delivering to super yachts. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Montclair podcast. Today we have a Paul Healy from Sabor in Barcelona. Paul, how are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
No problem, Paul. No problem. It's been a while since we met face to face, but I'm sure we will at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah, well overdue at this stage.
Yeah.
Because you were here a few weeks back, weren't you? But I was busy. I don't know what I had on. I had something on anyway, but
I can't remember, Paul. I can't remember. Yeah. You know, life of the super yacht chef, which I stopped a little while ago, but yeah. Anyway, so Paul, for people that don't know you, can you just remind us a little bit where you're from? Where did you grow up originally?
Yeah, so I grew up in Cork in Ireland, and that's like just a small town, maybe 10,000, 15,000 people. And I pretty much, once I left school, I started cooking. I worked in a few restaurants, and by the age of, I don't know, I left when I was about 20. I moved to Marseille, spent a couple of years there, and pretty much, I was back for a little bit after that, but for the most part, I've been kind of moving around in warmer places ever since.
Yeah. Why Marseille? Why the south of France?
Because I was working with a chef in a hotel in Ireland, and he was from Marseille, and he'd been traveling for quite a few years, and he decided to go back home, and he said, "Oh, look, if you ever want to come to Marseille, you can stay at my place until you get a job." And I was like, "Yeah, really? Okay, you're going to regret offering me that." And about, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks later, I was living in his house.
Awesome. So what did you do in Marseille? You work in a restaurant there, or?
No, I tried to get a job in a good restaurant that at the time, I don't know if it still exists. It was called Le Perron. It was on the,
I'm not sure.
on the coast. And, but the head chef said to me, "Look, you have zero French." He said, "The best thing you can do is go and work in a bar or an Irish pub or something like that." He said, because he said, "Look, I need you to be able to do stuff and understand what I'm saying quite quickly during service." So that's what I did. I went and got a job in a pub, and I did that for like a year and a half or so. And it was good fun. You know, when you're young, you're in your 20s. It was an experience.
Did you miss cooking?
Yeah, by the end of it, I did. You know, initially it was all new and it was a lot of fun and, you know, a lot of partying after hours and stuff like that. So, but by the end of it, I kind of, you know, I got a bit bored with it, and I wanted to get back cooking and do something a bit, what I really loved. And so so I left and I went back and I did a season or two in Ireland. Then while I kind of figured out in my head what I wanted to do, and from there went on. Went to stage at the Fat Duck then for a bit, and then stayed on. Then they offered me a job while I was there, and just.
So how long was the stage? Because at the time, the Fat Duck was this iconic restaurant, right? It was 3-star. It was one of the top, I don't know, 10 places in the world.
Yeah. When I joined, I think it was number 2.
Number 2 on the. We're talking about the top 50 San Pellegrino list, right?
Exactly.
Best restaurant in the world.
Yeah. And look, at that time, it was very UK focused. It wasn't really a very accurate list, or what would you say? It wasn't like Heston himself would say. He would say, "Look, it's a ridiculous list." He said the top 50 is probably fairly accurate, but he said the positioning is just, it's not. You couldn't really rely on that. So he was always very happy just to be in the top 50, but it was first or fifth or 15th or whatever it might be. It was just a nice recognition. But I did a month stage. I went for a month stage, and after about 3 weeks, there was a girl on pastry. Told him that she was pregnant and she was going to go home to Denmark, and they asked me did I want to stay on, and I said yeah, absolutely. So then I stayed for about 2.5 years after that.
Wow, it's a long time.
It was long hours, but look, it was hard work, but I learned a hell of a lot. Not so much in terms of recipes, because you do learn recipes obviously, but more about work ethic and attention to detail, and and how to be organized and really, push on and not be afraid.
For people that why I'm saying it's a lot, 2.5 years, it's a long time. It's because if you come from a normal job, 9 to 5, 2 years, it's easy. Weekends off and holidays and whatnot, celebration, summer off. Yeah. As a chef in a 3 Michelin star restaurant in this kind of environment, which is high pressure, high level, high expectation, it is really, really taxing on your person, on your body, and on your on your energy overall. So it's 2.5 years, it's a long time.
Absolutely. Look, I think to do that, you need to be single. You need to not have kids or anything like that, because I don't think you could do it otherwise, or it'd be very difficult to do it. It's not impossible, but it's even tougher. But at the time I was single, so I didn't have any major responsibilities. So it was it was doable for me at that stage. Yeah. It's not something I'd be able to do now. I definitely wouldn't be able to do the long hours now anyway, that's for sure. I'd be...
No, and it's true that in this restaurant, the people that come for stage, so for anyone that doesn't know what a stage is, it's basically an internship, right? You go there for a month, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks. You don't get paid, or you get paid very little. They give you sometimes accommodation to compensate, and you learn, and you get a chance to enter these kitchens that are, again, top kitchens in the world. So
absolutely.
You can't do that when you're 40, 50. Like it's not possible.
No, it'd be very difficult to do. So, but look, it's a good experience. Look, there's aspects of it that are great, positive. You learn, you meet a lot of interesting people that go on to be quite successful themselves over the years. So it's interesting in that way. You see people kind of, there was a few guys there definitely that stood out. And you just think like, I'm not in their league at all, and truth be told, then you look at them, and years later they've gone on to have their own 2 or 3 Michelin star restaurants themselves, and you go,
any name dropping?
Name dropping? I don't know how. Look, there's Francois Gerds in the Netherlands. He's got a 2-star and a 1-star. I think both are in Rotterdam. Who else was good?
So this is one of the chefs you worked with in your time at the Fat Duck.
Yeah, Frankie was with me he was there for about a year, I'd say. Like, he had been there, he was there when I arrived, and I'd say for about the first year I was there, he was there, and then he went home to the Netherlands to set up his own thing. But like it was pretty obvious at that stage, like he was going to do well. You never know if he's going to get stars or whatever, but he was definitely going to do well for himself.
And these
And
were
then
stagiaires, or were just chef de parties or commis, or were they sous chefs?
He would have been a junior sous at that stage.
Yeah.
And there was one guy, Martin Boucart. He's got a restaurant in Belgium. I think it's 2-star. I'm trying to think what it's called. Name escapes me now. But like he was, like there was a section that was like I don't know what they called it. It was a hot larder one or something anyway. So they kind of did a lot of the prep to go accompany some of the mains, and they do a bit of fish and that. And it was notorious as like the toughest section in the hot kitchen. It was just like
there's always
mountains of work, and you'd see guy after guy, and they'd have to do their 3 or their 6 months part of that, and then they'd move on to another section, and everything else seemed easy after surviving that. And this guy rocked up, and like so, I at that stage I was in the prep kitchen, so I was making ice creams. And so in the afternoon, those guys would be over in the prep kitchen preparing while lunch service was finishing, because their section would be one of the first ones to finish. And they were the most stressed guys. They wouldn't speak to anyone. They wouldn't stop for a coffee, just absolutely. And this guy,
it's brutal.
Yeah. But this guy rocked up, and I remember like the first couple of weeks I was looking at him and he was like strolling around the kitchen, like, and he was asking you questions about what you were doing. I was like, dude, you're going to get slammed. Like, what are you doing? You don't have time to talk. He was like, piece of cake. I was like, piece of cake? What are you talking about? And it turns out he was just that damn good. He was just, never saw him stressed. He was just super precise. And then obviously he just went on.
But Paul, I'm sure the other guys were also super precise, but do you feel like it's just stress management and how you see the work and how you manage it in your head?
Yeah.
Because the work was the same.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think he was just a different beast altogether. He was just on another level to everyone, or to most people. Just he had that kind of, I don't know. He'd do the same job as anyone else, but he'd have it done in half the time, and he'd have it done better. It's like
Incredible.
I remember reading about Marco Pierre White when he started, or when he was young, and I read another chef's story about him, and just saying that he was just like that. He was head and shoulders above everyone else in the kitchen, and that like he'd be finished his service, his prep, and he'd go for a wander in the garden looking for wildflowers and stuff to decorate his plates.
Yeah, I didn't have time to do that when
exactly.
I was working in the freestyle.
Exactly.
There was no time. The only time that I could allow myself, if I was lucky, is like take 7 minutes and go and have lunch.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw he reminds me of him. He was just like on that other level. And then there was Tom Allen. He's the head chef of Dinner by Heston in Dubai now, and he was a bit like that. He wouldn't go picking flowers. He'd use his spare time to go around and like play pranks on everyone else or anyone, and he was just a messer. But he was good for the morale.
I feel like I need to have him on the show. It sounds like a cool guy. I'm sure he's got cool stories.
Oh man, he was a legend. He was brilliant. He just do all sorts of nonsense. Just anything just to add a bit of spice into service, because for him it was so easy. So and then the guy that was stressed was always the guy that became the what was it, the victim of the prank. But it was good fun.
So
it was good.
2.5 years, Fat Duck, and then what do you do?
Yeah, and then I hadn't done much pastry prior to that, and the head pastry chef at the time was a guy called Jockey, and so I asked Jockey. I could see that kind of there were two paths. Either you kind of step up the ladder a bit, and you take a more. And I still felt I had, because I was fairly new to pastry, I still felt I had a huge amount to learn. So I felt like if I took a kind of a lower management, or like a head of pastry, because he was moving on up to kind of development and stuff like that. So if I kind of moved up a bit, it'd be interesting. You'd learn management skills, but I felt my pastry knowledge was still very much lacking. Yeah. So I asked him where would he go if he could go anywhere, and he said Paco Torreblanca's in Alicante. Wow. And so I went and Heston contacted someone, and they hooked it up that I could go there for a week as a little mini stage. And while I was there for the week, then I just said, I'm here really because I want a job. And they were like, yeah, okay, come on back. And so I went back and I stayed there for about 2 years again, give or take.
It's a good time again to see all the technique, the recipes, and really get that
absolutely.
under.
You kind of need it because I think if you were proficient in pastry already and you went in there for 6 months, you'd have the know-how to pick up everything in quite a short period of time. Whereas I was very new to it, and the thing about being at the Fat Duck, you're kind of very narrow focus on those specific recipes. There's an awful lot
or product or component of the dish, because some of the guys in these places they would be picking spinach for days, if not weeks, or flowers, like you said. So
absolutely. So you're not getting a massively broad spectrum of pastry work, Whereas if you went to somewhere like the Manoir, where they do, they're renowned for their French pastries and their breads and stuff like that, you'd get
and their tough kitchen.
Oh yeah, massively so. Yeah. There's no messing around there. But you go there, you spend a couple of years there, and you come out of there and you know your stuff.
Yeah, you're on top of the game. 100%. Someone that has worked, has done the 2.5 years, because I did a quick trial there just before I was starting in my other restaurant. And this was a very intense kitchen. Like you could see everyone was really focused, really careful, really fast. Like you could see if you spend 2.5 years there, you come out on top. Like you would know how to run this type of kitchen. Then it doesn't give you the creative side and all the other thing that comes later. But
no. Yeah, but you kind of need those building blocks, don't you? You can't go straight in and all of a sudden start making bubble and smoke and all that without actually having the basics. And so I think Torreblanca was a good spot for me for that kind of thing, so that I learned a bit more kind of.
So Torreblanca, what year was that?
I went there in 2008. It would have been the end of 2008, kind of like October, November 2008. I went there, and then I left at some point so it must have been 2010, I suppose. Then at that point, I went to work on a boat because one of the guys that I had worked with at the Duck came to visit me when I was there, and he'd like, "What's a cash?" And I was like, "The hell." To get all this, he said, I worked on a yacht for a season, loads of money, and I was like, and of course, I was on maybe €1,000 a month or something, living from paycheck to paycheck, not really an awful lot left over, and I was kind of like, I was like, after doing that for a few years, you start to crave to have just a little bit extra, a little bit of spending money, be able to save something, and so I was like, right, I'm going to give this yacht thing a go, and so I packed up my gear and I said ciao to Spain, and off I went to the south of France looking for a boat, not really knowing what I was.
Where did you go?
I rented a room or something in Juan-les-Pins or something like that, and I just printed out some CVs, and I must have started in Antibes. And for about 5 days, I just walked from boat to boat until I got to Monaco, and just handed up my CV, looking for a chef, until I got to Monaco, and there was a Parma Johnson just started pulling in, and the engineer took my CV, and he said, "Well, actually," he said, "we take chefs for the season." He said, "Probably in the next week or two, we'll be looking for someone." So he said, "I'll give this to the captain." And true enough, the next day the captain called me. Came back, did a trial, and I got that job by the skin of my teeth, I think, really, because I had quite a few years of pastry done at that stage, so my savoury had kind of like, I wasn't. But anyway, I blagged my way through it, and I got away with it, and yes, did the season on there, which was a real eye opener. It was kind of a whole new world.
What was the size of the boat?
It was 46 meter, but there's like Palmer Johnson's, the like gold ones.
Yeah,
it was the first one of those. I think it was hull number 1, so it was like this go fast, very flash, very.
So
You have to
how did you transition from, restaurant kitchen pastry in a restaurant to being a sole chef on a, 40 plus meter yacht where you have probably, I'm going to say 7 crew and like 10 guests?
Yeah, yeah. It was a struggle, to be honest. I suppose initially, yeah, I suppose hindsight's a great thing, but at the time, I felt that their expectation was going to be this really fine dining, really, this kind of Michelin star. So I was like making gels and things that
Yeah.
pop and all that kind of stuff.
You were making
And once they,
restaurant food, Paul, basically. You were making what you've learned.
precisely, and whereas very quickly they kind of explained to me, yeah, that's great when we're having a special dinner or friends around or whatever, but really, we want what you want to eat, spaghetti bolognese, or
Yeah.
put a little twist maybe just to make it nice,
Yeah.
or maybe an old school lobster thermidor, or spaghetti vongole was something they loved, and which is
Yeah.
something I had zero experience of. So I actually found myself, with these kind of years of experience and this idea in my head that I knew what I was doing, and very quickly finding out that actually I had no idea what I was doing, that I was starting at the bottom all over again, and so yeah, I struggled. I struggled at times, and it didn't all go great. There was days it went great, and they were very happy, and there was days they weren't so happy, and they were quite they were going
And
to give me feedback.
yeah, the challenge as well as a chef is like when you come from a restaurant background, suddenly you are, front of house because you're going to go there, talk to them, get the feedback without filter sometimes, and it can be hurtful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's so valuable because then you get, there is no filter, there is no, lost in translation, no like mixed messages. If they said, I love this dish, that's
Yeah,
one of the go-to next time they come on board, you're going to get that again.
absolutely. And as well, if I think as well with restaurants, what it's obvious now, but at the time, I hadn't really thought about it. But if you're let's say you're a restaurant and it's modern British food, well, already the clientele that are coming looking for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, whether they like how you've done it or not is a different story. But whereas with these clients, you're coming in with your modern British or your modern French or your modern Italian or whatever it is, and they might go, "We like Asian food," or
Yeah.
or, "We don't like that." My very first night on board, I did. I can't remember what I did for main course, but like I did like really good sticky toffee pudding recipe. It's a real simple one, and I thought I've never had anyone that didn't like it. And
Yeah.
it is you can make it ahead of time. I thought I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to fail. I said at least that play it safe the first night, and then I can get my feet and focus on the. And as the main course was ending, she said to the boss, she said to the stewardess, "What's for dessert?" And she said, "Oh, there's a sticky toffee pudding with homemade vanilla ice cream or whatever it was." And she said, "You can tell him we are not English people and we don't eat that kind of thing." And so they didn't have dessert.
Is that the
They
word she
didn't have-
chose?
Yeah, that was
We don't eat that
exactly
kind
it.
of things.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But funnily enough, she left anyway after a few days, and it went okay. And then maybe a week later, her son and his friends came on board, and they were all like in their 20s, and they were spending a lot of time in London. And I pulled it out again. I said, "God, these guys are going to like this. They're young lads. Everyone likes a bit of
Yeah.
sticky toffee pudding." And anyway, it went down a treat. They liked it. Fast forward 2 weeks later, she comes back. I swear to God, no word of a lie. She steps on board, shakes the hand of the chief stewardess, and she says, "Tell Paul, make me the sticky toffee pudding. We really love that for tonight." So the son had obviously gone home and said, "Oh, we had this really nice." So all of a sudden they were English people. But anyway, it was fun.
You're not there to cook for yourself. You cook for the guests and what they want. How do you deal with ego? Because it's something that some chefs struggle to understand, that when you go on a boat, it's a slightly different game. You're still cooking,
Yeah.
but you got to listen.
I think my lack of confidence in that sense was a huge benefit
Yeah.
because I was very open to being told what was to be cooked. I tried my best to do certain things, but I really kind of wanted direction because,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure of myself. If it came to dessert time or whatever, I had no problems there. I had a load of recipes, a load of ideas, a load of things I could do. That was no problem. But then when it came to kind of main courses and starters and this and that, I was very, very moldable. And so I'd go in and I'd research a recipe or whatever, and I'd find whatever was required, and then take the feedback very eagerly and adjust it accordingly. So I think that maybe on the first time, initially it was a little thing, but then it kind of over time it became a strength, I think, because I there was no ego because I knew I wasn't amazing at it, so I didn't have any preordained ideas or preconceptions of myself, thinking I was going to rock their world or anything like that. So in that case, I found it fairly straightforward. I liked the feedback, even when it was bad.
How many years did you do on yacht? That was your first one?
That was the first one. Then that was just a seasonal job, so that finished up in, let's say, October. Then I went on a sailboat for about a year and a bit, maybe 14, 15 months, something like that. Kind of, we went from Mallorca to New Zealand.
Wow.
And on arrival in New Zealand, we went to the shipyard, and there was a bit of and there was a kind of divorce going on in the family and stuff like that. So all the assets got frozen. And so we all lost our jobs. So like one day to the next, everyone got told, you don't have a job anymore. So that was that. So I came back to France after that, and a captain who's a friend of a friend, who's another captain, I asked him, did he know of any jobs? And he said to me, well, actually, he said, there's a boat. It's a 34-meter motor yacht down around Monaco, kind of Cap d'Oeil area. And he said, it's not the biggest boat, not the most exciting boat. He said, but he said, crew stay for a long time. He said, they're all there minimum 3-4 years. He said,
it's a good sign.
Go and have it. Yeah, he said, go and have a chat with the captain. He's a great friend of mine. He said, you might get more money on another boat. You definitely will. But he said, that's not everything in life. And so I went down, and the captain was a guy from Liverpool, and he was just a good laugh. And we hit it off straight away. And that was it. And I stayed on there for a couple of years. I don't know. Again, until it sold. So I don't know how long I was on there, actually. But anyway, I stayed on there, and a British family, very nice people, really, they were lovely. I couldn't say anything bad about them at all. They were really good to work for. They were really personable. They come into the galley in the morning to say good morning and come in and chat. And the wife of one of the kids I think she was Sardinian, and so she'd come into the galley and she'd show me how they'd cook at home certain dishes.
Amazing, yeah.
And just a real it was like, I don't know, you were just there, part of the family. The galley door was always open. They'd always come in and made you feel welcome. And so it was great. I really enjoyed that boat. Really enjoyed working with the crew. Fantastic crew, great captain, great family.
But again, it comes down to, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think it comes down to the owners of the vessel. How do they interact with the crew? Do they actually somehow, I want to say, do they actually respect the people that are there and, say hello, thank you, how are you? Just care a little bit, even if sometimes they don't have to. And that makes a big difference, because then you feel like what you do is actually, there is recognition for it. It's not, you're not just a number,
Absolutely. And like, I asked Baz one day, the captain, I said, Baz, like, there's huge turnover on so many boats. I said, Baz, like, how do you do it? Like, what is it that you do apart from, treating people with respect? But like, and he said, Paul, to be honest, it's very easy. Pay them what they're worth. That's it. Treat them with respect and pay them what they're worth. Finish. End of story. He said, there's nothing more to it. They will stay. Yeah. And like, engineer had been on since the build. Everyone had been on there several years, and they all loved it, and it wasn't because they were treated with respect and they were given responsibility. They all worked hard. They all took pride in their job, and they all really liked the family that owned the boat.
Yeah,
You know,
that makes
they
a big
felt
difference.
they felt like an extended part of the family. They, you know, you'd see when the family arrived, there was genuine smiles and
Yeah,
happiness to see each other. It was like, "Hey, how have you been?" And like the dad of the family, like, he would remember everyone's name. He'd ask, "Oh, how your family are," with genuine interest. It wasn't just
yeah.
it was genuine interest in the people that worked for him, and the mum as well. She was lovely, and they'd take the time of day to have a chat with you, like so with me. That, yeah, just sit down and have a chat about food and you know what they liked and what they didn't like and what kind of wines they have, and they'd ask you questions. Did you know what would be good with this or whatever? And
Yeah.
it was a conversation, and it was an enjoyable conversation.
But
And
this is more difficult on a bigger vessel, I feel, because this was
yeah,
still on a smaller size. It's still a pretty big boat, but now when you see the size of the boat coming out, they're like 100 meters, 120, 140, and plus.
absolutely.
This is a different operation. This I understand that this was more enjoyable for you as a chef as well, or as a crew member, because like you said, everyone was staying on board for long.
Yeah, and like after that, then I went on an 82 meter, and
Yeah.
I thought this is going to be a great galley, all the equipment you might want.
This is going to
But
be a
it's
step
not.
up. This is what you had in your head. It's like it's going to be better
Yeah,
on every level.
and it was equipment wise, but in every other way, it was a step down. There
Yeah.
wasn't that close relationship with the family anymore. There was like lots of people in between you and so there was the old, what they call it, Chinese whisper kind of thing, where
Yeah.
the messages were getting distorted en route, um, and it just, yeah, and again, larger groups of people, so you get a bit more politics, a bit more.
Yeah.
So again, look. There was no one bad or no. I don't have anything bad to say, but it just the people that I worked with were lovely. Just there was a huge difference going from a crew of like maybe 7 to a crew of, I don't know, 27 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a lot of people. It's a lot of people,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
if you stick that many people, that many human on a little floating box, there's gonna be some politics and there's gonna be some stories and some complaints and.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So, Paul,
But
when did you start thinking about I want to call it exit strategy or the next move? When did you start thinking about Sabor?
I suppose I started probably when I got on the big boat. I kind of, because I realized that it wasn't really for me. I started thinking about what would I do, and going back to restaurants. I didn't. Yeah, I kind of like I was. What age was I? I was 30. I was in my early 30s at that stage, and I thought going back in now, killing myself for. I didn't see it, so I was always very interested in the ingredients and sourcing the ingredients and getting the best. Just fascinating where stuff came from and why it was better from here rather than there, and just I think most chefs are really just kind of getting excited about where the produce comes from, and I just thought maybe it's something I could do. Maybe I could go and obviously again, it's a bit like everything. You go with a preconceived idea of how you're going to do it, and you go, yeah, it's simple. You just buy the best and you deliver the best.
Simple, right?
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yeah, it doesn't work out like that. It's an awful lot more complicated than that, unfortunately. But that's it. If I knew how complicated it was, I probably wouldn't have given it a go. But
Yeah,
sometimes it kind of with restaurants, so it's that naivety, and once you're in, then you find a solution.
yeah,
Whereas if you're thinking about if with a bit too much information, you probably don't make that jump and you don't take that chance.
yeah.
Uh, and so yeah, that was kind of it. I was just started thinking about that, and I thought, well, yeah, look, I could give it a go, and kind of
Which year?
that's
Which year was that? The
that
start of
was
Sabor,
2014. So
2014.
so I came to Barcelona in March of 2014. I think it was St. Patrick's
And I
weekend.
have to ask Paul, why Barcelona? Sorry to interrupt, but why
And
Barcelona? Why not the south of France? Because this is where you were started.
yeah, well, I think my time in Alicante, I had fell in love with Spain and the people and the way of life and just that kind of general, I don't know, I don't know, live and let live kind of attitude. There's not,
Yeah,
yeah, just very easygoing culture. They like to sit out and have a beer and have a few snacks in the evening, and the tapas thing and the whole lifestyle. I just quite liked it. It just appealed to my personality, I think. And and then so when I started thinking about the provisioning thing, I was like, well, the south of France, there's all these great companies. How am I going to compete with them?
Yeah.
And then I looked at Spain, and there was a few agents doing a pretty decent job, but there was no one just doing provisioning. So I thought, quite often, if there's no one doing it, there's a good reason for it. But sometimes you can
Yeah.
you can get in, and so yeah, I came down and I gave it a go, and I had a few friends and a few contacts from the industry that a few chefs and that I had met over the years that gave me that little bit of a start, and again, the first few orders were pretty terrible, but people kind of stuck with me, gave me an opportunity, realized that I was like learning as I went, and for that I'm very grateful. Without those people taking a chance on me, there's been a few captains over the years that kind of went, look, we're going to give Paul this order, we're going to give him a shot. Yeah. Probably deep down knowing that they'd be better off shopping elsewhere, but they just thought, I'm going to give this guy a leg up. And I wouldn't have a business today if it wasn't for those people.
Yeah. No, the support you get from people is not always because you might be a little bit more expensive sometimes, or like you say, a little bit less experience. But at the end, if they believe in you, they know you're gonna get it together, and you're gonna give them back maybe 10x what they gave you or what they help you with.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you gotta at least you're gonna do your best, and you're gonna try your best, and go that extra mile for them, and yeah. So look, there's been ups and downs, lots of them, but overall, yeah, it's kind of you build relationships with people, and you meet people over the years, and and I think that's probably the most enjoyable part of it, really, like just meeting people and seeing how they're progressing in their careers. Like, because a lot of the guys and girls that were chefs when I started, they've already moved on, and they've gone and started their own business or their own restaurant or their own whatever. And it's nice to see them progressing and taking those first steps and making successes of themselves. And sometimes they fail, like all of us can, and they get back up and they go again. And so yeah, it's nice.
Did you ever feel like Sabor was going to fail at some point, or was it? I'm sure it wasn't always, green grass and
absolutely loads of times. There was more times I thought it was going to fail than there were successful times. Yeah, there was loads, man. Like, it's when I remember even there's been a handful of times like that. Even just in that first year, I was really struggling to get suppliers to give me what I needed, and there was a language barrier. Now my Spanish was pretty good, but it's still, they didn't have the culture of the kind of products that yachts were used to, and
also, Paul, side note on this: when you come from a 3 Michelin star background and you go into anywhere in the world and you ask for something, your standards are through the roof, and then what people give you, it's often less than half of what you're expecting, and you're like, what? How is this possible? So you have to kind of like educate them on what you want to be able to deliver what you need.
Absolutely, and I think also coming from that background, your go-to is to scream at them, and be rude.
It doesn't work.
Absolutely not. It's just like you create walls all around you, and So that was a big one for me, learning that actually not everyone will work or wants to work to those standards. And it'd be great to find suppliers that are all aligned with your ethos, but the reality is you're not going to. There are some, and those ones you got to appreciate and nurture and be loyal to. But the reality is not everyone is, and not because they don't particularly want to, but just maybe their market doesn't demand it. If you're the only client of this guy that does fruit and veg, but 99% of his clients are looking for a middle of the road standard, for a middle of the road price, Well, he isn't going to change his old business model just because you want the best mangoes in town and the best pineapples, and
Yeah.
it makes no sense for him. So you
No.
kind of have to adapt a little bit and understand where your limitations are based on where you are, and over the years try and improve in those different areas as much as you can, I suppose.
Yeah.
Meat is one of those that I really struggled with at the beginning, because it was very much the meat wholesalers here were very much focused on, kind of run of the mill hotels, restaurants, not very. So that was a big one at the beginning, but
Yeah.
along
And when serving super yachts, Paul, is there one thing you wish that could change in the way maybe they order, in the way they expect, in the way they work in general? Something you could tell them, like if for anyone that listen, maybe a chef or a chief stewardess that usually work with you, like what's the one thing that you would like to say that is, it's going to help everyone basically?
I suppose, look, time is always a big one. Just there's lots of moving parts with an order, and there's the more time your provisioner B or your supplier has, the better.
Yeah.
That just goes without saying. So, some people coming from restaurant backgrounds maybe have the habit of ordering today for tomorrow, and you're only going to get a certain standard of product. Because look, you ask me for X, Y, and Z, I can find it for you, and I can find it for you today. You want the best of X, Y, and Z, then maybe I need to ring the guy that's in Madrid that's going to send it to me, and then I need to ring the guy in the south of France because he's going to send it to me. And that takes a few days. Yeah. So everything's doable on short notice, or most things are doable on short notice, but if you want the best quality, generally allowing a bit more time is definitely a big help. And that would be one time, really. I think...
Yeah.
I think if I don't know, what would you say? Look, and again, it's not down to the chefs really. It's from management companies and stuff. Really, the kind of these quote wars that go on. Yeah, and that
I know because I was one of them that was asking you, Paul, can you quote this and this and this and.
Yeah, but your quotes were more kind of generally. You wanted to know how much you needed to spend.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I've got X to spend for the prep for this season. And if there was something that seemed outrageously expensive to you, you could pick up the phone and go, hey, Paul, why is this so expensive? Or can we get a cheaper one? Or whatever, just to give yourself an idea. Like, I understand that. But what a lot of these, I understand is coming from management companies, and that is they're obliging chefs to get 3 quotes from 3 suppliers and that kind of thing. And really, it's not, It's not really. It's a false economy, because let's say a fillet of sea bass, I can get you the cheapest sea bass in the market if you want.
Yeah,
it's not something I take home and eat with my family, but I can get it for you. I can get it and win the quote every day of the week. I refuse to do that, but there's a lot of companies out there that don't, and they end up getting more business because they have. Well, I'm not. I don't want to speak badly about them either, because they're doing what the market is asking of them.
No, absolutely. And there is room for everyone. There is room for everyone. But it's true that if you want quality overall, and if you want a good standard, purely basing your idea on the price of the quote, saying that this guy is better because it's cheaper, or this guy is better because he's in the middle of the quote, at the end of the day, it's down to the quality of what you get. And was it fresh? Was it frozen? Is it prepared properly? Is it sustainably sourced? Is it actually healthy for your crew and for your guests? There's a lot of variable here that is... but the fact that if you need to ask 3 or 4 different suppliers for a quote, also you are wasting time. You're wasting a little bit of time. I think you should have 1 or 2 that you trust.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest with you, like if you're working with a supplier that you trust and you've got a relationship with, look, at the end of the day, you know what they're going to give you. And you can just... And at the end of the day, you ring me up after a delivery, you go, hey, Paul, look, the onions are really expensive this time around.
Yeah.
And we'll sit down, we'll have a conversation about it, and we'll come to some sort of a solution.
Yeah.
There's no one trying to rip anyone off. We're all in this together. And I think it's kind of like the owners, they've spent so much money on this amazing yacht.
Yeah.
And they try to get the best crew, pay them well, best chef, best whatever they can. and then to be saving a few cents on the chicken, and well, you're taking away the real, a chef with great ingredients can be a great chef. A chef with crap
Yeah.
ingredients can't be a great chef. And so
Yeah.
you're kind of like at the very last hurdle. And again, don't get me wrong, this is not me about me making a better margin or whatever. It doesn't matter. The margin is the same on the cheap bit of fish as the expensive bit of fish.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But I want to sell something that I would at least be happy to take home and eat on
Yeah.
my table with my family. And I'm not a billionaire or a millionaire or anything like that. So
Yeah.
if I can afford to eat it, surely be to God. You mean the crew are well paid, deservedly so, because they give up a huge amount of their lives. They give up their whole lives working on a boat.
Yeah, they
Surely
give it
they,
the time, which is not, it's not all about the money you're getting. It's about what you put in as well. And that time you don't get it back. So it's important that
exactly,
you,
and surely they deserve to eat a decent quality of food. Like it doesn't need to be wagyu or foie gras or whatever, but like just decent, like a free range chicken that isn't overly expensive, or half decent food that they would cook, that they would buy for themselves.
yeah.
I don't think
Or
that's
for
too
their
much to
family,
ask.
for themselves and for their family,
Honestly,
because that
if
changed
it, it,
the list very, very, very fast. When you start saying, would you give this to your kid and to your wife or to your,
100%,
husband? It
100%.
makes a big difference on what you
Yeah,
choose.
and we're not talking about what you'd have with your wife on a Saturday as a treat. We're talking about
Yeah.
Monday to Friday. Your kids come home from school. Is that what you would feed them? And if
Yeah.
the answer is no, then it's not good enough for crew food. Bottom
Yeah.
line,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Now, not everyone
Yeah.
agrees, and there's plenty of chefs that agree with me. Their hands are tied, and they're not being allowed to make that decision, which
Yeah.
I think is a real pity, because I think it's unnecessary in the grand scheme of things. On a yacht that's worth 300 million euros, it's a drop in the ocean,
Yeah.
and there's no one, and I believe strongly from my experience with yacht owners. You go to the yacht owner and you say, "This is the quality of food. Would you want your own crew eating good quality food that isn't outrageous, or would you want them eating rubbish?"
Yeah.
Every single one of them will say, "Feed them well."
Yeah.
I want them to be happy and doing a great job for me. I want them the stewardesses to come out with a smile on their face when they greet me, and not
Yeah.
feel like I'm a skinflint that's ripping them off. There's no
Yeah.
owner wants that. But somewhere in the middle, with the professionalization of the industry, whereby there's this attempt to make everything more streamlined, and I understand it makes sense, fuel quotes, shipyard quotes, etc., etc. That all makes sense to me. I'm not saying that it's a waste of time, but I think with crew food, I think you're shaving off pennies in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, barely pennies, with zero benefit almost, and there's a huge downside that
Yeah.
your crew are not your crew don't feel as valued as they should,
Yeah.
and I don't know, but that's my take on it. But then a
No, but
provisional would say,
I of course. No, but I agree with what you're saying, Paul. And I think it's not it's just the general idea behind it, which is like, take care of the crew and, take care of what's important and not maybe the bottom 0.1% of it.
yeah, yeah,
But this is the yachting industry as well. Not everything is perfect. Some of it is,
no,
some
no,
of it
no.
isn't.
Yeah,
We're all working toward trying to make it better in our own
yeah,
little ways.
yeah.
You serve super yacht, Paul. Do you also work with villas, right? Private residences, or is it mostly
Uh,
super yachts?
at the moment, we're probably about. I would say we are a little, maybe a little. I don't know, 65 to 70% yachts, and
Okay.
the other 30% would be restaurants, not.
Oh, restaurant. Okay.
Yeah, very little villa work really, just because the volume on the villas, because the villas are they're static, and they tend to do a lot of shopping themselves.
Yeah.
So they'll only contact you for the kind of real specialist products. So there isn't much in it really. There's a few, we do a little bit for the odd villa here and there, but it's definitely not it's not a substantial part of the business really.
Yeah.
So the yachts and restaurants would be our main business.
Yeah. And you, I don't know if you want to talk about this, Paul, but you also launched something with the meat boxes. Is that something you're
Yeah,
still doing?
yeah. We kind of launched it there maybe 6 months ago.
Yeah,
It was just, again, it was kind of through not necessity, but just talking to friends. That because my young fella plays rugby, and so at the rugby club, chatting to the dads and stuff while the kids are training or whatever, and we're having a coffee, and the guys were like, they kept saying to me, "Oh, can you get good meat? Because we can't get good meat. We go to the supermarket and we're just like really unhappy with it, and it's crap." And they were like, "We don't mind paying a bit more," and so it just, I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll bring you a few steaks, or I'll bring you a nice chicken, or I'll bring you this, whatever." And it kind of got a bit ridiculous, because I was like, every week I was coming with like boxes of stuff, and it was becoming a bit of a pain in the backside, to be honest with you.
yeah,
And so I thought, why don't we just like create a little Shopify thing? And we did a very basic
yeah,
website. No, it's not very user friendly, but it was just kind of to do for a few friends. But now we're kind of going to roll out a little bit better, make it a bit more professional. So that you can buy free range chicken, grass fed beef, free range pork, homemade sausages that don't have any nitrates or any
yeah,
additives in it. Like we went like old Cumberland recipes that use, onion, garlic.
yeah,
I don't know if there's garlic in it. No, I might have made that up. But like fresh parsley, fresh milk, fresh breadcrumbs. A traditional recipe how it would have been made before the addition, before people started using all these like preservatives. And so you
additives
make
and preservative. Yeah,
that's it. Make the fresh sausage, blast freeze it,
yeah,
and you take it out of the freezer as and when you need it. You don't keep it in the fridge for a week or 10 days,
yeah,
because it
yeah,
will go off, because it's
yeah,
minced pork or minced chicken or whatever the sausage is made of. And yet, so it's kind of like taking off a bit. It's like kind of we've got a few, again, mostly parents, families from rugby that kind of have a standing order every month, and they get a box of, and it's all like packed how they want: 4 pork chops, 4 pork chops. I like my minced beef in half-kilo packs. I like it
yeah,
in 1 kilo packs, depending on the size of the family, and we're doing a little bit more kind of like, not ready meals, but kind of like handmade, cordon bleus. So like open up the
yeah,
chicken breast with ham and cheese and breadcrumbs, and just kind of making their cooking at home a little bit easier, but still using quality ingredients, and they don't have to feel guilty about using something that's pre-prepared. And
yeah.
yeah, so like it's
And
not
that's using your supplying network and all the people you vetted and all the suppliers that you trust now, so you can
100%.
deliver
That's
better end products
exactly.
and
Yeah, absolutely.
goods.
Yeah. So because we've our own butchery in house, because meat was a problem,
Yeah,
we did our own butchery. So we've got 2 butchers in house, and so because of that, we have the ability to kind of, I would say, we're a bit more flexible in how we prepare stuff and how we cut it
yeah,
and this and that, and making sausages and burgers and whatever, and adapting to what people would like. So the way I see it is a bit like your old school butcher in your town,
yeah,
but online.
yeah,
And so you can order it, and once a month, once a week, whatever you want, you get the box delivered to your house at a pre agreed time,
yeah.
and that's it. And it's kind of
No, but it's a great initiative, and like you say, you're opening up a new market perhaps for Sabor.
yeah,
Not
look,
as
whether
big,
it
not as
no, I wouldn't imagine it'll get
crazy
very big,
orders,
but
but yeah,
you never know. But look,
yeah,
at the moment, it's a handful of customers, and it goes and it works well
yeah.
for them. It works, and it's an interesting side project for us at the moment. And I think over the next few
Keeps
months,
your butcher on site busy as well, because
yeah,
that means there's
yeah,
always something to do. There's always some activities and some, a bit of variety as
absolutely.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's fun. It's interesting. It's a new project, and we'll keep going with it for now anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
No,
far
that's
so
great. So,
yeah,
Paul, where do you see Sabor going? Where do you see yourself or the company in the next 5 years?
that's a very good question. I suppose the next 5 years, I think probably in terms of like for yachts, I think it's definitely going to be a bit more. Yeah, I think we're going. It's starting. I've seen it start. It's going to be a lot more about where the products come from. So especially on the
Yeah.
guest side, sourcing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sourcing is becoming more and more important. People want to know where the figs came from, where the tomatoes
Yeah.
came. They don't want this mass-produced stuff that's available all
Yeah.
year round. People are really I think we're going to get a lot more seasonal, which at least I hope we are. And
Yeah.
that in the summer, we're going to use what's available in summer. In the winter, we're going to use what's available in winter. And really focus. Like I met, I've been a long time fan of Franco Fubini, the
Yeah.
guy that founded Natura.
Natura. Yeah.
And yeah, and so I've been chatting back and forth with him. He came to visit us there maybe about 6 months ago, and just like went for lunch with him and kind of just picking his brain on, because he draws from like small farmers all over Europe and then puts it all together in Paris and in London and in the States obviously as well. And so I think we're going in that direction. I think we need to. So I'd like to see in the next X amount of time really us to kind of really start talking to more. We do with some things, but more so with local suppliers, local growers as opposed to suppliers.
Yeah.
And then really, and we're talking with Natura at the moment about kind of getting shipments sent from Paris to here, and get the best of Europe in one delivery, kind of there from Sicily, from here, whatever, especially for guest stuff, and then also maybe on a lesser scale, but try and push that with crew as well. Kind of a little bit, maybe just to be a bit more seasonal, so that like broccoli. Now we're coming into broccoli season, so when broccoli is in season, we can get amazing stuff that's just been cut, like a few fields away from us. Get it now.
Yeah.
Don't order it from me in June or July when it's no good. There's other lovely things to eat in June or July.
But then it comes down to reminding people what is in season, because I feel like people, they don't grow stuff in their backyard anymore. I remember as a kid, I had like apple tree, pears, cherries, raspberry. When the season is in, because you eat so much of it. So you remember that. But now people don't know, because you go to your supermarket and your local market, and then you see, raspberries all year round. So it's like, what do you mean there's a season for it? There isn't anymore. So it's very important to remind people when is the good time to eat the broccoli.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's massively down to us. I think that kind of needs to be a big part of our job going forward, is that we are communicating what's in season, and not just with fruit and veg, with fish, and seafood, and what's in season, and I think also it'll work to everyone's advantage. You get better tasting products, because you're going to get them at their best.
Better price.
Also, exactly, better price. So you're going to come in within your budget requirements. Also, you're not going to be ordering, I don't know, oranges or mandarins in July because they're being flown halfway around the world and they taste of nothing and they cost twice of what they should cost or what they do cost in season. Obviously, if the boss wants mandarins in July, then the boss gets mandarins in July.
Yeah, of course. But that's a different conversation. I feel like if we really deep dive into like the special request, I think we can do a special episode just on special request and where do you want your order to be delivered, because that's a big one.
Yeah, but like for you now as a yacht chef, looking at provisioners, I'll ask you the same question. If you could change one thing about how provisioning is done, what would you change?
I feel like my opinion, one, doesn't matter so much since I'm kind of stepping away from the yacht chef position. But my opinion was that I wish there was a way to order fast that works for everyone, not just for me as a yacht chef or for anyone else on the boat, but for you as a supplier as well. It's like, I need to make my order. I need to add things tonight at midnight. I need to do it in like 2-3 clicks. Is there a way to do it where I know exactly what I'm going to get, what I want, and you understand what I want, and we all both in the middle, and it works, no matter if it's an app, if it's a spreadsheet, an interactive spreadsheet that we have together, and if when I press broccoli 1 or broccoli crew, it's 2 different things, and then it's fast, and it just cuts a lot of time off for you and for us yacht chefs.
Yeah,
that would be my idea.
We've been working on something like that for the last year now at this stage, so it's kind of an interactive Excel and an online kind of thing. But one of the problems we find is because everyone's list is so different.
Yeah.
You end up with thousands of products.
Yeah.
Because Chris is going to order X, Y, and Z, and then Julio down the road is going to order all, and you kind of have to have everything they like and all. And it just the list. It becomes. It's like what's that big book, Larousse? It just becomes
The gastronomic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, and it just becomes that. And when it gets that big and that dense, it's not user friendly anymore, and no one uses it. And so, how do you compact it enough that it suits everyone, but yet leaves the door open for them to add stuff?
Yeah.
So we've been working on that. It's in its infancy, where we're playing around with it. We've had a few gremlins, but I'm still not convinced it's going to be the definitive answer. There's I don't know.
But we can talk again, Paul, once you have a product, and we can test it, and we can ask also the people we know to try it out.
Exactly.
Paul, thank you so much for being on the show. I feel like we need to have another couple of episodes to dive deep into different topics, because there's a lot to say. There's a lot to say.
You need to get someone to interview you, because you'll have plenty of information as well.
As soon I can. We can just have an open mic night, and we can just share and ask questions to each other.
Yeah, brilliant. Awesome.
All right, Paul. Thank you so much.
All right, Chris. Thanks a million.
Talk
to you soon.
Thank you, Paul.
All the best,
ciao,
man.
Ciao.
Take care. Bye. Ciao, ciao.